Brace yourselves, Pertwee fans. Hello, welcome back to Marathon Man, where I'm going through Doctor Who from the very beginning. And if you've been enjoying this marathon so far, but haven't yet done so, then why not like, subscribe, and clang the cloister bell. Oh, and share. That's another word that YouTubers say. So why should Pertwee fans brace themselves? Well, you know, for years I'd never really, truly been a massive fan of his time as the Doctor, or the man himself in the role, if I'm being honest with you. Don't get me wrong, I do like the guy, and on the whole I do like him as the Doctor. It's just that when I'm a fan of Doctor Who, and in the decades since there have been like over a dozen other Doctors in the role, I can never truly say that he had ever bothered the top of my list. Nevertheless, because I spent so little time revisiting it in early formative years, his era has a kind of... there's more unfamiliarity there. That's not true. There's less familiarity there than I have with the rest of the classic series. So his era always has me looking forward to reaching it, now that the only way I watch Doctor Who is in order consecutively on a marathon. So I always welcome him with open arms, and his blistering first season has me all giddy and excited. Maybe even questioning myself. And not only do I find myself giddy and excited by the stories, I find myself warming to Pertwee's Doctor far more quickly than maybe even his two predecessors. And it's always more pronounced with each marathon. I like him more and more and more each time. And it has me thinking, well, maybe I was wrong when I was young, and maybe I had done Pertwee a huge disservice. And then Terror of the Autons comes along, and I think, now I remember. Because the first story of Season 8 reminds me of the misgivings I used to have about the Third Doctor's era. Then The Mind of Evil comes along, and I think, now I remember. Because this is the story which reminds me of the misgivings I used to have about the Third Doctor himself. He's got the capacity to be a proper git, and not in the charming, likeable way that Hartnell's was and Troughton's could be. No, in quite an obnoxious way. And in the times where he is an irritating, smug, pompous dick, I find it really hard to side with the hero who receives title billing. This story is the least I have ever liked the Doctor on this marathon. Could you tell? A time-travelling super-intelligent alien he may be, with knowledge and understanding far beyond the capabilities of our own. But when he talks throughout the lecture at the beginning, I find myself bristling with frustration. Have your reservations, Doctor. I mean, the man you're sneering at is a bit of a smug, self-satisfied, pompous dick himself. I mean, go so far as to judge humanity for not having the intelligence and understanding that you do, even though it's not yet accessible to them, if you must. Just do not do it out loud while the man is talking. Particularly if you're in the front row. Several thousand years of space and time travel may have given you an awful lot of knowledge and experience, Doctor, but for all of those famous friends that you keep name-dropping, you don't seem to have learned many manners. I know the Doctor has known to be a little bit petulant and short with people in the past, but when that has happened, either it's been completely justified, or the actor playing the Doctor has managed to still imbue the whole sentiment with some of the Doctor's innate charm. But here, Pertwee kind of serves to turn me off the Doctor a little bit. And this isn't an isolated incident. It happens a little bit later on in the story as well. And both times, that's a significant obstacle for me. Even when the Brigadier saves his life, he's a prat about it. He doesn't even let Jo have her grief about Barnum. She's spent the story building up a rather touching and grounded relationship with him, which is layered with pathos, maturity, and even slight unease when you consider Barnum's original nature. And in one of the story's strongest areas, Jo's fondness and protectiveness of Barnum helps to strengthen a character who is otherwise struggling to make her mark. For sure, Jo is better served here than she was in Terror of the Autons, but it still doesn't feel like she's been treated particularly well. She currently feels like all potential, and that's mainly through Katie Manning's winning performance. And there are flashes of beautiful characterisation, such as through her friendship with the doomed convict. She isn't really given much else to do, and after her debut story, she sorely needed it, which makes her thread with Barnum all the more important, never mind how successful one deems it. So when he dies in the story's climax, it isn't just rather touching that she would feel bereft, it's imperative that we spend some time on her reaction, and focusing on that might help poor Jo along in becoming the new regular. But no.
She'd never have left him there.
How do you think I feel?
Your feelings don't invalidate Jo's, you Like I said, I started to go off the era with the previous story, but in this one, I start to go off the Doctor himself. Thank goodness then for the Master. He seems more into his plan this time, which is nice to see after the lamentably ill-judged caper last time. And the fact that the Master has been playing such a long game for quite a long time and been succeeding quite so well at it up until this point is really edifying to see after the last story. I'm still not entirely sure his plan makes a whole lot of sense, but he is definitely more formidable here, which only elevates Delgado's already class performance. As with Terror of the Autons, when the Doctor and the Master face off again, it really kicks the story up the arse. I love the dynamic between the two of them. First of all, we've never really had anything like it in Doctor Who up until this point, and second of all, Delgado being as good as he is forces Pertwee to up his game. For this reason alone, the Master's growing ubiquity in this season is actually quite welcome. Does it get a little bit tired later on? Maybe in story terms, yeah. But if his repeated presence keeps bringing out the best in Jon Pertwee, then I am all for it. Because I do believe that he needs to pull his finger out sometimes. Now, whether or not it's the Earth setting taking hold and he needs to find new ways to condescend to the Brigadier, which is understandable, by the way, or maybe it's because he hit the ground running so very, very, very capably when he took over that he's struggling to keep up the pace. I don't know. But it isn't just... I get the feeling that it isn't just that Pertwee is settled into the role. It's that he can sometimes become a little bit indolent in it. Now, like I said, this could be the repetition of the settings and the characters in which and against which he finds himself. But there's no denying that a rapport with a character like the Master definitely relights his fire, and I am grateful for it. Sadly, though, the Master has another last-minute U-turn when the Doctor offers a trade for his dematerialisation circuit, which, coming so soon after Terror of the Autons, serves to diminish him slightly again. It doesn't detract from Delgado's exemplary performance, of course, that I have to stress, but it does make for another story in a row where the Master realises a whopping flaw in his plan at the last minute. And it has the added effect of a story limping towards a conclusion rather than rattling towards one. The stakes are high too. A missile has been stolen and is about to be fired, so it should cross the finish line like Usain Bolt on a good day, not amble over it like Jon Pertwee running across a gantry. And that is exactly what it does. This is a crying shame because much like Jo Grant at the moment, this story's good stuff exists as potential. It's full of ideas, almost to the brim, and yet none of them feel like they're done particularly well. I've mentioned Jo's thread with Barnum as one of these, and in my opinion it's one of the story's most successful ones. In that, denouement aside, it's actually done very well. So is the idea of the creature feeding on evil. This is a great idea to hang stuff on and makes for a really intriguing monster. Not only that, but it makes for a very strong start to the story. That Barnum already underwent the procedure and so no longer has any left is a neat idea, but what's even tastier and juicier is what that might imply for our regulars. Less than savoury things, that's what, and it shares this with Don Horton's previous story, marking him out as a writer with one of the most unique takes on Doctor Who so far. In Inferno, it made for a nigh-on perfect story and offered up meaty ideas which, when compared with Doctor Who's usual track record, had the potential to break your jaw chewing them over. Here, though, it offers only glimpses into what could have been, which is ironic, really, when you consider one of Inferno's more identifying features. And where that story filled its length admirably, The Mind of Evil really struggles to. And I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but the Doctor is a bit of a git in it. And as I'm on the subject of both the Doctor's gittitude and Inferno, I really appreciate the callbacks here. It's nice to know that the Doctor hasn't truly brushed off seeing the parallel world burn in its entirety, with everyone on it. And so, while the Doctor, I do feel, crosses the line in terms of obnoxiousness and unlikability, being reminded of what he saw in Inferno and how it affected him stops me from, I guess, flat out disliking the Doctor completely in this story. It is a redeeming trait when one is sorely needed, and so I am grateful for it. And it's on this note that the cliffhanger to episode 3 is incredibly effective. It's rare to see the Doctor quite so terrified, and when we do, it is incredibly disconcerting. And that's one of the reasons why Boom worked as well as it did for me. So not a great track record for Season 8 so far, and a crushing disappointment considering how I felt at the end of the last season. So Doctor, how do you think I feel? Still, I'm 288 episodes deep now, and I am determined to push on. Joe and Barnum's friendship. For the first time, I think I'm going to have to give it to the Doctor himself. I told you to brace yourself, Pertwee fans. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this Pertwee pile on, then you know how YouTube works. Please do give it a like and share. And what do you think of The Mind of Evil? Am I being utterly unfair to it, or does it keep you at arm's length too? Is the Doctor really as unlikable in this story as I've made out, or am I missing something entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for the Claws of Axos. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and let's go and investigate a crashed alien spaceship.